Welcome to I Drink Your Podcast.
Oh gosh, it's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You leave me no choice. Here comes the smolder.
Wait, you like that?
No,
you don't like that?
No, I don't like that.
No, how about that? You like that?
A little better.
Bread makes you fat?
Does this count as annoying?
Just tell me what you want me to fuck!
Not you, and not you.
Okay, I think it's time to take off your clothes and jump me.
$1 million isn't cool. You know what's cool?
I drink your podcast! I drink it up!
Welcome to another bonus episode of I Drink Your Podcast. This year we are doing movies from 2010, and our bonus episodes are focused on those movies that are reboots, prequels, and sequels. We tend to stick to the more original ideas when it comes to our normal episodes, but there are big movies that come out each year that are based on pre-existing properties, and we want to talk about those as well. So with me today is Emily.
Hello, everyone.
And we've got our friend Ryan back from the Coolness Chronicles and Reels of Justice. Hey, Ryan.
Hello.
So happy to have you back, man.
So happy to be back.
Ryan's one of our favorite people in the universe, so I'm super excited about this.
Chanting my own name. Ryan, Ryan.
Well, before we get into the movie, what is in everyone's glass this evening? And we'll start with Emily.
I mean, with all the vodka drinking in this movie, I just, you know what, might as well take, sips of vodka throughout the evening. I wasn't going to just take straight pulls, and I'm not going to do a shot because fuck that. I'm getting too old for that shit. So sipping a shot of vodka.
Okay. Well done. What kind of vodka is it?
It's peach and orange blossom.
I meant brand, not flavor.
I don't know. It's super fancy. Corbin had it in her liquor cabinet, and I was like, dude, what is this? And he's like, it's good. You should drink it. And I said, okay.
Cool. Ryan, how about you? What do you got?
In keeping with the lead character who is a recovering alcoholic in the comics, I've selected Dasani. It is officially almost water. It's no Aquafina. I'm going to give it that, but it's water.
I went with the same beverage this evening, but I called it Iron Man's greatest enemy.
Oh.
I wish that they would just squirt him with water, because that's all it should take to make that bitch rust.
You're so stupid. As everyone's been hinting at, we watched Iron Man 2 this week, and it can be streamed on Disney Plus, which is still kind of weird for me that they have this whole Marvel section, but whatever. Ryan, we're so happy to have you here. And obviously it's been a bit, so tell us what's going on with you and your podcasts.
Sure. So for the Coolness Chronicles, we wrapped up recently 100 episodes on the greatest thing ever, Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Whoop, whoop.
And now we're deep into the second season, all about the landmark parody film Airplane, the movies and filmmakers that inspired it, and the movies and filmmakers it inspired, from Mel Brooks to the Marx Brothers, Hot Shots to Scary Movie, The Naked Gun to Ghost, of all things. Huh. It is a weird, semi-serialized, fairly unique experience that is frankly exhausting to produce. I mean, a bummer. Accordingly, depending on when this episode debuts, the final 6 episodes will drop. And then in October, I'm continuing on to a spin-off called One Track Mind, where I analyze films through their audio commentaries. And that'll be on the same feed. And then for Reels of Justice, for those who don't know, it's a fake movie court where we have a prosecutor, a defense counsel, a judge, and a jury. We try to determine if a film is guilty or innocent of being a bad movie. We just hit our 100-episode milestone. So we're well into season 3. It's been a wild ride, and you can find both of those wherever you listen to this podcast.
Nice. Ryan, I might have to have you introduce me to the movie Airplane, as I've never seen it before with my
Seriously?
spin-off. Oh my gosh, Ryan, you don't even know how many movies I haven't seen. I started a spin-off, which I'm in the works of editing and planning, of just 15-minute episodes of my friends and podcast people out there introducing me to movies I've never seen before. And so far, I've watched Donnie Darko, I've watched The Thing, I've watched Royal Tenenbaums. I feel like Airplane needs to be in there too.
Let's see. So if you do Airplane, then you got to do Top Secret as well, because that's the
Top
stealth
Secret.
masterpiece.
Top Secret is one of my favorite movies.
So good, yeah. It's amazing. It's basically the reason that I did Airplane as a topic, so that I could eventually get to Top Secret. And it's all downhill from there.
This is why we love you, Ryan. Yes. Well, and you're always watching really amazing things. Is there something recently that you've seen that you really want to share with us? Because, you know, Ben and I as teachers, now that we have our summers kind of free, we have some time to explore new opportunities.
I have been really getting into 4K Blu-rays because it's a form of retail therapy, because I have lots of issues and it calms me down to get a package in the mail and being able to open it and see all that stuff. So I recently rewatched Suspiria in 4K, and it was like a revelatory experience to see like these blues and reds and greens and this vivid saturated color. I can't honestly tell you what the movie's about. I can just tell you that it's in color, and all those colors are great. There's only 3 of them, so they better be great. But it's an outstanding film. It is probably Dario Argento's best, although Tenebre's close up there for me, but it's better than Deep Red. It's better than Bird with a Crystal Plumage. It's great. It's fantastic.
I don't know if you'd like Suspiria, Emily.
Well, I mean, I'm starting to get into some horror mystery sorts of things, so I don't know. And it's Italian, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe.
Can confirm it is Italian.
And then Ryan, completely the opposite direction from that. Why'd you choose to be on for Iron Man 2?
So this is a weird transition period for Marvel Studios, because they had gotten a loan for like $550 million from, I think, Merrill Lynch, and they funded the first Iron Man, the Incredible Hulk, and potentially Thor and Captain America. And Iron Man was such a big hit that they immediately put a second one into production. And you can really tell, because it's very much bridging the gap between Iron Man and the Avengers. So much so that the last half of the movie is basically Avengers 0.5. Mm-hmm. And it suffers because of that. But at the same time, that's kind of why we now go to Marvel movies, to see those interconnected pieces and how they all fit together. So I think that it demonstrates the best and the worst in the same package, and it makes it absolutely fascinating.
That is a great way to preface our talks about this movie, because I have a lot of feelings about this one. I know Emily does too.
I just have a lot of feelings about Marvel in general, and we can definitely dive into that for sure.
Could we pick up now where we left off? Mr. Stark, please.
Yes, dear.
Could I have your attention?
Absolutely.
Our priority here is to have you turn over the Iron Man weapon to the American people.
Well, you can forget it.
We're safe. America is secure. You want my property? You can't have it. But I did you a big favor.
I have successfully privatized world peace.
We're adjourned for the day. You've been a delight.
But Iron Man 2 is a sequel to Mr. Mom. No, Iron Man 2 is a sequel to 2008's Iron Man, and is at 72% on Rotten Tomatoes, and was the 3rd movie in Phase 1 of the MCU. It was the 7th highest grossing movie of 2010, and was nominated for Best Visual Effects Oscar that year. It is directed by Jon Favreau, who also directed the original Iron Man. He began his career as an actor in movies like Swingers, Rudy, and The Replacements, before becoming a director of movies Made, Zathura, Elf, and, as I said, the first Iron Man.
As well as Cowboys and Aliens, but he'd like us to forget that one.
Right. That comes right after this.
Yes.
I feel kind of embarrassed because I didn't really realize who Jon Favreau was until he started doing Star Wars stuff. And I was like, oh, he's actually a director and writer and not just that guy in the Iron Man movies.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Well, to be fair, he's fairly invisible in these movies. Like, there's not a lot of directorial flourishes, so it's really hard to, like, pin him down as a filmmaker, especially as he goes on, does The Jungle Book and that fucking Lion King. I hate that Lion King.
Yep.
But he eventually becomes like a special effects guy.
Yeah.
I want to call out the writer of this movie also. This movie is written by Justin Theroux, who I'm still watching Leftovers. I'm very slowly getting through it. He is the main character and main actor of the Leftovers TV show. He's a very recognizable face. He was called in by Robert Downey Jr. to write this movie because he also wrote Tropic Thunder, which was a Robert Downey Jr. movie. So that's the connection to how he got this role as writer of this movie.
And it shows the clout that Downey had even that early, that he could call his shot and say, if I'm going to be in this movie, you got to hire the guy that I want to write it, which would not happen today. Like, never.
Well, I mean, that goes to show how Downey got a 2,000% raise from the first Iron Man to this one. Like, they saw how important he was.
That's disgusting.
To that movie's success. Speaking of him, he did get his start in the 80s, was on one season of SNL, and then got an Oscar nomination for playing Charlie Chaplin in the movie Chaplin. He had a spectacular falling out due to drug use, but did return in the 2000s in Ally McBeal before becoming a movie star again in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Zodiac, Tropic Thunder, and Sherlock Holmes.
Huh.
These are all true.
Another 80s star who is in this movie is Mickey Rourke. He was in movies like 1941, Rumblefish, and 9.5 Weeks before leaving acting to become a boxer in 1991. He did return to acting in 1994 before experiencing a career resurgence with 2005's Sin City and winning an Oscar for his portrayal of Randy the Ram in 2008's The Wrestler.
Which I have yet to see.
Oh, no.
I thought he was nominated. I mean, he was nominated, but I don't know if he won.
No, I think who did he lose to? Sean Penn.
There you go, for Milk, right?
Yeah, for Milk.
Good performance. Not as good as Mickey Rourke, but good performance.
He's so good in The Wrestler. I love that movie.
Yeah, outstanding.
Also in this movie, who we're not going to dive too deep into because there are a lot of people in this movie, are Don Cheadle, who replaces Terrence Howard as James Rhodes. We also have Gwyneth Paltrow, Sam Rockwell, Scarlett Johansson, Samuel L. Jackson, and Elon Musk.
What?
And Bill O'Reilly. Oh boy, that hasn't aged well. Oof.
Yikes.
But let's jump into this movie by reading straight off the back of the DVD cover. Emily, give us that synopsis.
Yeah, since obviously I have seen this movie before. I think just one time before this, so.
Once
now that his
enough.
superhero secret has been revealed, Tony's life is more intense than ever. Everyone wants in on the Iron Man technology, whether for power or profit. But for Ivan Vanko, it's revenge. Woo! Tony must once again suit up and face his most dangerous enemy yet, but not without a few new allies of his own.
I guess we go from 2008's Iron Man to this movie. How much time kind of spans between the end of that movie and the start of this one? Because it's not super clear.
I'm glad you mentioned this because this is my biggest problem with the movie because I'm a big timeline freak. The timeline makes no sense. So this is 6 months after Iron Man, which takes place in 2008, but it's concurrent with Thor, which takes place in 2011. So it's this weird nebulous period where it's supposed to be 3 years altogether, but is actually 6 months. It makes no sense whatsoever.
And during that 6 months, does Tony not be Iron Man, I guess? Because they talk about this period of peace. And I'm wondering if just the existence of Iron Man has created that peace, or is he out there fighting crime?
I think that was my assumption, that he was out there just kicking terrorists in the faces. Like, that was kind of my assumption, I guess, which is not really peace, but maybe it was to him.
See, I always assume that because he's not a very good hero, like he only seems to fight villains that he's caused, I like to think that he basically used Iron Man as like a PR tool, because when he starts off at the Stark Expo, it seems like everybody's there just to look at him. And I think that after he kills Jeff Bridges' character, spoilers for Iron Man 1, Jeff Bridges dies. I know it's a tragedy, but he kills him and then he goes, you know what? I am Iron Man and I'm not going to do shit about it. I'm just going to sit in my palatial estate and watch the money come rolling in. And guess what? He was right.
Wow, I do not remember Iron Man 1 at all.
Good first 2/3. dog shit third act.
Bummer.
Well, and I guess that explains, Ryan, the part of the synopsis where it says Tony must once again suit up. Because if he hasn't really been fighting crime in the suit, so now he's actually got to do something to fight off an enemy that, as you said, he created.
Which stays consistent. In the Avengers, the whole thing that opens up the portal into another world is a building that he designed. Iron Man 3, he leaves the guy out on a ledge and, well, he becomes a villain. Let's see. Avengers Age of Ultron. He creates Ultron. So there you go. Creates the robo-apocalypse. And then Civil War, his parents died and he's sad. Like, I don't know. Whatever. Civil War.
We've seen that before in Batman. Come on. Yeah, I don't really have a problem with the MCU in general, but I definitely have the fatigue that I know a lot of other people have suffered. And so I've only kind of dabbled in the movies ever since I think Iron Man 3. I've seen a couple movies here and there, and I've obviously seen some scenes, and I kind of get the gist of what's happening, but there's really nothing that has drawn me back to the universe. And I don't know if it's because I feel like I have missed out on the evolution of characters and the story and just how things have progressed. And as you said, Ryan, just like the timelines of things, I feel like it's already now so overwhelming to me that I can't piece things together.
Especially now that they have television series. So really you have to keep up every single week, because the second they're done, you wait 2 more weeks and there's another show. It's a little insidious. Like and I'm a Marvel apologist. I will always defend the MCU, even though I realize that it's killing cinema. But the fact that you have to keep up with so much shit, it is overwhelming.
Okay, I'm really glad to hear that from you, because I feel like I have a lot of people in my life that are like, come on, it's not that hard to keep up. Just keep watching it. I'm like, no, it's so hard.
Content. You got to get that content. I need it bad, man. I need that fix. Got to get that content.
And with this movie, just seeing Robert Downey Jr. playing Tony Stark and just being super asshole-ish, talking over people, and the introduction to, why can't I think of her name? Natasha. Shit, what's her name?
Black Widow.
I've seen most of the Avengers movies. I don't know why I can't fucking remember shit. But just kind of getting these introductions to people and getting to know a little bit more about Nick Fury's goals, it just feels so stagnantly superficial. And after now knowing a lot more, and I guess maybe at this point, it was really thrilling and exciting to see a lot of these kinds of movies coming out. But now looking back on it, I felt like there was a lackluster energy to it.
I think a lot of that too has to do with the way that these Phase 1 Marvel movies go about trying to create the worlds of these characters. Like, you watch this Phase 1 and it's all science, or at least the science within Marvel of whatever rules apply to them, Palladium and that nonsense, arc reactors.
Or like, type, I did science.
Right.
Magic, it's a kind of science.
Right. Because then Phase 2 and 3 are much more of the fantastical, multiple worlds. We're veering away from reality, but that's what really struck me on this watch, was how grounded in reality this movie tries to be, with how batshit insane some of the stuff they're trying to pull off is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when they were making the first one, Favreau described it as Robert Altman's Superman.
Okay.
Which I think if Robert Altman was alive at the time, he probably would have taken issue with that. But I think that it is appropriate, and that they're trying to do, I don't know if they're necessarily succeeding, but they're trying to do a character study.
Mm-hmm.
And everything else kind of goes by the wayside until it doesn't. But yeah, there's definitely a preponderance of science that becomes very much secondary as these movies go on, especially when Guardians comes out. That's when they start going, this isn't science fiction. This is like Star Wars. This is space opera. None of this has to make sense. You'll just go along for the ride.
Space wizards! Which I don't mind. I mean, I like enjoying fun stuff like that. But I don't know, this movie felt grounded in a bad way to me, just reflecting on it the second time watching it.
So like it's anchored.
Yeah. but like in a way that I don't quite enjoy.
It's trying to do so much by telling a continuation of the character story of Tony Stark while also establishing Natasha, establishing Rhodes, and also trying to build a villain for us to root against in this movie, and trying to cram in all the SHIELD shit. So you can definitely tell that there are executives' hands all over this thing, trying to point them in a direction and make sure all this shit gets crammed in. And it comes at the expense of the coherence of this film.
Right. And speaking of all the stuff that they cram in, because I don't remember Iron Man 1, is Pepper Potts like his girlfriend at the end of Iron Man 1? Or is this another kind of like squishing their relationship together?
Yeah, this is a lot happened in 6 months. Ooh, but really, there's no progression in that relationship. And then it gets even more pronounced in the next one, where she's barely in the Avengers. I think she's in it for like 2 minutes. And we're supposed to assume, oh, they're getting serious now. And then in the third one, they're practically engaged. But there's really no ramp up. It's just kind of fit this in, and well, if it matters, it matters. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And in this case, it doesn't really matter, but at the same time, like, I'm glad they're trying. They're not succeeding, but they're trying.
So how would they have done this in a better way? Besides, taking out some of those aspects or adding more movies, I guess. Maybe those are the only two options.
I think that by removing Mickey Rourke and just making the villain Justin Hammer, I think that you gain a lot, because there's really not, like, other than the desire for revenge, there's really not a lot to Whiplash. And he's already an amalgamation of two characters, because he's Crimson Dynamo, which was an actual Russian character, and then Whiplash, who I don't think has any Russian background. So that's weird. But I think by jettisoning that character, then you get with Justin Hammer, he's basically Tony before the accident. Like Tony, but without the moral compass that he eventually gains. And also, like, by, I guess, maximizing as opposed to minimizing the Nick Fury character, considering that he was introduced in a post-credit scene. So of all the people who went to go see Iron Man, not everybody sat through the credits because they didn't think anything would be at the end. But then when he shows up in this movie, it's like assuming that everybody sat through those credits, because otherwise he's not in any of these movies, except for like 2 minutes at the end of Captain America. Mm-hmm. But there is so much room for improvement here that I think that if they had more than 2 years, they spent a little more time with the script and refining it, I think that you could actually have something good. Like, there's a kernel in there. There's definitely a kernel, but it's not a lot of substance.
His name is Rhodes. Oh!
Boom!
I'm funny. What do you think, Ben?
I also think that Tony Stark's character arc in this movie is so all over the place and is so not clearly defined. Like, he's both battling for his life and he's dealing with his narcissism, I guess.
And alcoholism.
And stepping down, and his relationship with Pepper Potts. There is no one coherent thing driving him through this story. He's just kind of bouncing around to whatever problem of the minute is
Daddy
at his
issues.
hand. Yeah, it's all over the place.
And in that, like, being all over the place, like, there are some really great ideas, like having Howard Stark be basically Walt Disney and building Epcot. As a Disney nerd, that hits all the buttons for me. But unfortunately, it's kind of like, yeah, son, I loved you. Bye. I'm dead now. That's it? All right, well, I guess. I mean, if that's all you got.
I also think that there is something that could have been done where if you just stuck with the thing is poisoning him, and he's dealing with this sins of his father type thing, because he's having to go against Vanko because Vanko's kind of been created by his dad. I would have really appreciated that story arc and him coming to terms with how his father felt about him, and that more playing into it. But like the alcoholism and that being the impetus for the War Machine Iron Man fight, like it all just felt so hollow and fabricated. Like them going from best friends to all of a sudden they're trying to murder each other in these billion-dollar suits. It was just a huge leap for me.
And also, like, when they announced that they were going to do Iron Man 2, Favreau said that they were going to do Demon in a Bottle, which is possibly the most well-known Iron Man storyline where he actually deals with his alcoholism.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, it's kind of like, yeah, he still drinks booze. Yep. Oh no, he's being poisoned. Is that because of the booze? No.
Nope.
Not really.
And again, I wonder if that's all studio meddling, because if the Palladium poisoning is what gets the shield there to help save him, like, I could see how that was crammed in to get the shield in to get us to where we needed to be for the end of this movie to be ready for the Avengers.
Absolutely.
Shall we talk about some good things?
Yeah, let's talk about the good and focus on who won this movie. Emily's got one. Go.
Pick me.
Yeah.
The bird in this movie was
one.
by far my favorite part of this movie. And I know that might be kind of stupid, but like the bird drinking out of the cup, the relationship with Mickey Rourke, just the bird was awesome. I loved the bird. I could have more scenes with the bird and be very happy.
Pardon me, it's pronounced bird.
Bird. It reminds me of my Russian statistics professor that I had, and he had this series of data that was all about bears, and you'd go, let's look at the bear data. It just drove me fucking nuts. It was so funny. I loved it, and we would mimic him outside of class and be like, bears, because we thought he was so cool. The end.
And ironically, he was also building drones.
Probably. I wouldn't be surprised.
Ryan, you got a winner?
I do. Sam Rockwell is such a great scumbag. Practically every single character he plays is a scumbag, but he's so good at it. And he even gets to dance, which gives me positive memories of Charlie's Angels. To see him kind of jig to picking up the pieces at the Stark Expo never fails to make me smile. Whereas the rest of the movie, I'm kind of grimacing, kind of like a rictus grin, like, I guess I enjoy it, it's fine. That's like one of the few moments where I'm like, yeah, give me this for 2 hours and I'm okay with it. I'm completely fine.
Yeah, he was definitely the person that was underneath the bird for me. I was really a big fan of his performance in this. And exactly what you said, Ryan. I was grimacing the whole time because I was like, I hate you so much, but you're so good at what you do right now. You're so good at making me hate you. And he's such a dummy in this, you know, just being a goofy, dumb guy that can't do anything right. But I really enjoyed that aspect.
Sam Rockwell is definitely my person who won this movie. However, my winner is Palladium. It's forever been sandwiched between its more famous cousins in nickel and platinum. And for one night, at least, Element 46 was element number 1. And I appreciate that. Well done, Palladium. You're easily the 4th best written MCU villain.
God damn it, Ben. Although I did actually enjoy the like toxic poison spreading out around him. I thought that was just a cool design. That's it. It was just like, oh, that's cool. So sure, we'll go with the element killing Tony was number 1 of the elements.
Palladium beat Iron in this movie.
The next spinoff we get is Nickel Man.
Other good that you guys saw in this movie?
I mean, I didn't have a ton that really stood out to me. Like I said earlier, it was just kind of blah things that I expected in a Marvel movie. But I will say the donut shot is probably one of the few shots that stands out to me in a very positive way, where Tony is just eating donuts in the middle of that giant donut. I just really, really enjoyed that scene. But then also the technology just seems way cooler in this movie than I remember. You know, just all of the, I don't know how to fucking say it. All the floating technology in the air was super cool to me.
Like the hologram stuff that he was doing in his workshop?
Yeah, and some of it looked like, okay, this seems really stupid because you're just like swiping in midair. But I ended up just getting caught up in it. It just brought me into the world of this technology. And I didn't expect a movie from 2010 to make me enjoy that.
Yeah, that was one thing that they wanted to improve on from the first Iron Man. Was apparently a lot of the feedback they got from the first Iron Man was that technology is like very realistic to what we're actually working on. like the arc reactor stuff and all that. So they wanted to go above and beyond what technology was currently working towards and actually make stuff that was a little more fantastical.
Right. Ryan, is there anything else that you liked?
Well, I mean, there's Coulson, who, until he was murdered, is my favorite MCU character. Because he's like the one that has seen everything and is not fazed by it, does not care, does not give a shit about absolutely anything other than just, I have a job, I do it, I clock in, I clock out, whatever. Oh, you wear an iron suit? I don't care. Oh, you have Captain America's shield? You know what this is? No? Okay, whatever. I'm just going to go pick up this hammer. Bye. He's like, every single time I read comics with shield in them as a kid, he's the guy that I imagined I would have been, just completely unimpressed by anything that happens.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
The one other thing that I found good that I wanted to call out was, and Ryan, you mentioned it earlier, the stuff with his dad, with the old timey footage. I did think that the way that they cut that together to be this reveal of how his dad really felt about him, I thought that was actually a really powerful moment and was really good for the character moving forward. Because I do think that that's something that we then do see later on in the later movies, is him taking on this more fatherly role and trying to not necessarily fall into the same trappings that his dad did and being more vocal about his feelings for people. So I appreciate that little bit of character progression in this movie.
And that even ties into Endgame when he finally gets to meet his father in that time period. And they get that little moment where he's like, I do care about my son. I love him. He's my world. It's one of those things that this is definitely, I mean, they had no idea that Endgame was coming, but it's clearly they're setting up road marks for the future. And it definitely pays off, but it's a long time to wait. Like, it's 9 years between movies. But it does, as you said, it fuels his arc going forward.
Do you think they knew that it was going to become, that MCU was going to become what it is at this point?
Absolutely not. I don't think they were just looking at Avengers saying, if we make this movie and it doesn't do well, we are bankrupt. We lose Marvel Comics. Everything is riding on this movie. And I think that once it comes out and breaks records, that's when they realize, oh, we got a gravy train with biscuit wheels here. We need to keep this shit going. And then every Avengers movie is then the signpost. Like, we need to make it to this. Doesn't matter what we do in between. We just need to make it to this. And now they don't even need Avengers movies anymore, because they can just put one or two in each one and be like, there you go. You got what you wanted.
I do think they probably knew where they were going with Infinity War and Endgame by Age of Ultron. Like, I do feel like they planted enough in that movie to kind of lead us to see where they're going. And I do think now that they are planned out probably 10 years into the future with story plans for the Marvel Universe.
Oh, this doesn't sound appetizing to you, Emily? It's not.
Well, no,
it's not
can
your
you just
thing?
imagine the kids that grow up with this and, you know, a 10-year-old wants to start watching these movies and having to find a place to start. You know, obviously it's very explicit on the internet where you should start if you want to go chronologically or if you want to go by the way the movies were debuted. But oh my God, I mean, I always feel overwhelmed just going into comic books when I'm interested in starting with a character, or the X-Men comics, oh my God, are so overwhelming of where to start. And I'm just thinking more and more, this is just going to be even harder as it ages. But maybe they'll figure something out. I don't know. This is just me working through my process of, oh my God, it's too much content.
There exists a 50-hour chronological supercut of the Infinity Saga from the first Iron Man all the way through Endgame, where someone actually cut it in order chronologically. And I'm talking even like the prologue stuff that's before movies, like where they start with like Black Panther and it talks about the stuff that started there, and then they go to the next prologue and the next prologue before jumping into movies. And then they intercut certain scenes based on where they happen chronologically.
You know, I thought I had too much disposable time, but this guy sounds like a real piece of work.
I do not want to see that.
I tried to watch it and got 30 minutes in and was like, no, I can't do this. because it was 30 minutes of all prologues from all the other movies. And I'm like, oh my God, we're just getting into Captain America now. Let's talk about the bad.
For sure. Okay, the funniest part of this movie for me was how bad one actress in particular was. And it was during the Monaco race. And it was the woman in the green dress that was right behind Hammer. She was standing there with her mouth open and just like throwing her head sideways in the most dramatic and ridiculous way, like how I would act if I was trying to act in a movie. It was so bad. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, I know I'm supposed to be staring at Sam Rockwell because he's the best, but she stole that scene from him and in the worst way possible. And I feel really bad because I'm sure she gave it her all, but goddamn, she was not good. Sorry.
Since we're talking least favorite characters, my least favorite character in all of the MCU is Pepper Potts.
Oh, is that because of Gwyneth Paltrow or
I mean,
other
it
reasons?
probably is part of it because I just can't take her seriously, anything she says. Like at one point she tries to walk in heels and it's like she got sunburnt on her asshole and just couldn't figure out how to walk around it.
Oh my God.
I'm going to put that on her IMDb page. Has been known to walk around like she had sunburn in her asshole.
But no, I didn't like most of her character in this movie. I didn't like her line readings. I didn't like her emotions, which just seemed to be all over the place. Like her reaction to Tony during that Grand Prix scene where she's like screaming at him. It's like, you did the crazy thing. You're the one that just drove the wrong way during a race. Tony taking over a car wasn't that crazy in the first place. It's a little crazy and destructive, but he would have been fine had Whiplash not showed up. But she's like screaming at him like he had murdered her.
You're right. Yeah. And there was also her reacting in a really negative way to Black Widow that did not seem to make sense. Like maybe they were trying to imply jealousy because she's hot and because they over-sexualized her in so many ways in this movie. But I don't know, that just seemed to come out of nowhere.
Yeah, one of my notes is, why is Pepper mad at Natalie? She just starts screaming at her like, this all happened when you got here. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? But let's not veer too far from that Grand Prix scene because that entire action sequence is awful. The logic around it just doesn't make sense. Like, why would the race runners just let Tony get in the car? How did Vanko know that Tony would get in the car to then he gets on the track?
That annoyed the shit
wipe
out
him
of me.
away. Like, none of the action scenes in this movie impressed me. So I'll just throw that out there.
Okay. I'm trying to think if there were any action scenes that I liked. Ryan?
Oh, action scenes? Oh.
Yeah.
No. Not really. I mean, I have a perverse appreciation for the robot fight just because it's so terrible. But then eventually they start playing Daft Punk's Robot Rock, and I'm like, all right, I get it. Okay. Good. And it's like a remix with Another One Bites the Dust, and I'm just sitting there like, yeah, okay. Robots fighting, playing Daft Punk, okay. But, I mean, I can't defend it. Like, it's narratively,
Right.
It is so convenient and so, yes, lame. But I think that's why I enjoy it as much as I do, because everybody hates it so much. And they always use it as their rationale for disliking this movie, as if there isn't enough already. But I think that because everybody hates it so much, I must come to its defense. Because it needs somebody in its corner. And damn it, that's going to be me.
Speaking of the Monaco race from earlier, all I could think about was this is just rated R Speed Racer. You know, just like a rated R version of all these people probably dying, but we're not seeing bodies or bubbles to save them, you know?
That's what's missing in this movie. Everybody, when they get mortally wounded, should have a bubble surround them and just watch them like roll down a hill or just bounce away to safety. Oh, that'd be so great.
You know, that's another thing that bothers me, though, is that you don't find out if anyone dies in this. There are so many parts where people should be gruesomely murdered or dismembered or blown up. And obviously, they don't want to show that because it's still PG-13 at this point. But, like, I just don't know how to feel, because there's this part of me that's like, there should be people dying and people upset, but also we're in the beginning of the MCU and they don't want to show all of that morality shit yet.
I also think, though, that like we never see Vanko die. And they actually did that on purpose because they weren't sure if they wanted to bring him back or not for a later movie. So they intentionally cut out a scene where they show him dying because they wanted to make sure that they had the ambiguity in case they wanted to bring him back.
Which is the opposite of what they did with Jeff Bridges in the first one, where they originally shot the scene where Tony goes to the suit and it's empty. Like, dun dun dun, he's not in there. Like, who cares? But then I think it's one of the reshoots that they did where they're like, no, you know what? We don't need him. Let's just get rid of him.
I'm going to throw this out there, Ryan, because I want to know your opinion on it if you have one. The little boy in the Iron Man mask. Retroactively, that is supposed to be Peter Parker.
Yes.
Like, Tom Holland has confirmed that. How do you feel about that?
Well, again, it goes to the timeline, which makes no sense. But then again, the timeline with Spider-Man is very much in dispute, because there's that, in Homecoming, there's the 8 years later title card, which means that he'd probably be 22 at the time. But I'm all for retcons. And I think that given his obsession with Tony Stark in those movies, which I think is probably the weakest part of those movies, I think that it fits. It's a very Marvel thing to do. But I don't understand that anybody would go back and go, oh my God, that's Peter Parker. That changes everything. It's like, no, he met him as a kid. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
I hated that part. Even not knowing who the kid was, I was like, oh my God, you're such a fucking idiot. Move, you kid. You're not going to do anything. You can't believe in yourself. Stupid.
Tony has to have one moment where he actually acts like a hero. Just one. And that's what they chose.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal. And I also felt like the transitions of this movie were all over the place too. There was nothing that was cohesive about where we were going. I feel really bad about hating on this movie so much, but I just think you both are right. There's so much to pack in here that they lost a lot of just good movie techniques.
How about weird?
Oh, okay. So the birthday party, there's a lot of weird shit going on. But the girls throwing stuff for him to shoot with his Iron Man suit, I'm sitting there just like on edge, hopefully waiting for one of these girls to get completely murdered.
Yeah.
And the thing in watching that scene that I really picked up on this time, like, where'd they get a watermelon? Like, what kind of party? What kind of party in a palatial Malibu estate? They have like all these nice craft services, and they're like, you know what we really need? A Gallagher smashing watermelon.
It's like the pineapple in How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah, every movie has a pineapple in the background if you look hard enough.
Yeah, that's right.
I also could not help but get distracted by Vanko's haircut that happens. I don't know if anyone else noticed it, but like he was whipping, and that was when I noticed his hair moving, and it was shorter than what I originally saw it as when he was taking care of his dad or drinking or something. Or maybe it was tucked into his jacket. I don't know. But all I could think was, oh, he's whipping his hair cut. Yeah, he used his whips to cut his hair. Great barber.
He does put it in a ponytail at one point. But I don't know if that's before or after. Like, I don't know if it's wavy because they wanted to emphasize something. I have no idea. But he definitely tucks it in at a certain point.
Right. It distracted the shit out of me.
I had an issue with the toxicity reader.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
The thing that was just like a box that told him what % his blood concentration was. And the reason I didn't like it is because I don't understand what the percents mean. Like, at one point it said his blood concentration was 86%. Are they trying to say his blood is 86% palladium? Like, what the hell are they doing?
If so, give me some of that palladium. That keeps you going.
Especially when it's so simple. They don't need that reader. Just make Tony's appearance change more. Like, just show us this thing on his chest, and we'll get that he's sick.
Or I guess it was creepy
Maybe
up his
neck. Maybe a little
neck.
haggard. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also just didn't like how old technology it looked compared to everything else he had. It drove me nuts. Like, why does he have all this fancy technology and then here's this old looking thing from the 80s?
It's a USB stick, basically, that you then plug into yourself.
The other thing, and I know Emily was bothered by this one, is he takes the model of the city of the future and puts it in his convertible to bring back to his house, and then he puts the model on the table and blows on it, and dust flies off.
Oh, yes.
The fucking convertible would have just blown all of that dust off. Why are we doing this?
Oh, that bothered me so fucking much. Thank you for bringing that up. I forgot about it. Ryan, anything stand out for you?
Yeah, I mean, we brought this up before, but Scarlett Johansson does not give a bad performance. I'm not casting aspersions on her as a performer, but I hate the way they treat Natasha. For the first hour and a half, she's just being ogled and talked about like she's property. And it like, even back then where I was dumber in 2010, I was like, that's not cool. That's just gross. And thankfully they kind of, grew up out of that. But then of course they kill her and have her basically be the only casualty in a movie with like 900 characters. So they've always
Right.
done her dirty, but they especially do her dirty in this movie.
I was actually really happy that they didn't ogle her with the camera when she stepped into the ring. Like, they kept the camera frame above her cleavage. And, that's something I noticed because I was expecting the camera, and I'm used to the camera being a lot lower because that's how they would normally shoot a sex object in a scene. And that's how they were treating her in that scene. So it caught my attention that it didn't happen.
But then it just continues to do that later on. There's definitely some very distinct ass shots and just looking down on her shots. And I'm just
And when she's in the back of the car and Happy is trying to look at her undressing, I'm just like, that's gross. Cut this out.
Yeah, definitely not needed.
Let's put a cork in this thing and give our final thoughts on Iron Man 2. Ryan.
I'm going to go out here and make a hot take. Not a good movie.
Hot take.
It's the hottest take I got. It's scalding. It's one of those movies that I defended at the time in 2010. I thought it was better than the first. I think it's basically now only like a half star below, but that's because I have my issues with the first Iron Man. But it is grown into one of my least favorite of the bunch.
Emily.
I don't really have too many strong opinions about the MCU other than it just being too damn long. But I feel like this movie was unnecessary. I don't think there was really too much that needed to happen in this movie to cause the events of the next movie. And so I probably will not watch it again unless it's randomly on TV and I can't change the channel. So it was fine.
So basically, only if you lose your remote will you ever watch this movie again.
Exactly. Ben.
I forgot how forgettable this movie was. It's
a good way
not
to
something
put it.
I ever need to watch again. I have a hard time believing, and I haven't seen the Thor movies in a long time, that the Thor movies are worse than this.
Oh my god.
But that's their reputation, is the first two Thor movies are among the worst ones in the MCU. And I don't see how that could possibly be, because this thing was just an incoherent mess from start. Character motivations were all over the place. Action sequences weren't exciting. Yeah, I did not like it on rewatch, and I don't remember hating it as much as I do now, but it was bad.
Woo!
I don't want to say bad in terms of MCU, because I think there is a bar there where you talk about bad movies, and there are some real shitty movies out there.
Right, this is better than Transformers, right?
This is absolutely. Yes. This is better than B-movie. This is better than epic movie. Like,
okay, you brought the bar really low on that one.
But I'm just saying, like, there's real trash that exists in film, and this is bad for the type of movie that it is, the MCU.
It's mediocre.
Yes.
It doesn't tip all the way into one of the worst movies ever made.
Not even close. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today for this bonus episode.
Thank you for having me. This is always fun.
It was so much fun. You bring so much insight and hilarity to our conversations, and you're so very appreciated.
And you sound so smart compared to us as I slur my words.
You sound so smart.
I think you're great. You know why I think you're great? Because you're smart.
Ryan, why don't you plug your shows before you go?
Sure. So I'm at Coolness Pod Ryan on Twitter, the Coolness Chronicles on Instagram, and also you could go to One Track Mind Pod on Twitter, and that's the numeral 1 Track Mind Podcast on Instagram. And Reels of Justice is Reels of Justice on both Twitter and Instagram.
Thank you so much. And next week we'll be watching Easy A with our friends from When Cinephiles Attack. So we're going to have Rashawn and Mela join us.
Such a good movie.
Yeah.
I'm really excited.
Think I've seen it, but I'm not sure if I've seen it.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I have memories of it, but I don't think the memories are from watching the whole movie. I think I just watched a couple clips.
Well, you also forgot about Iron Man 2, so...
I forgot how forgettable it was. I didn't forget about it.
Okay, well, Ryan, before we go, I would love if you could, in your best Russian accent, end our episode by saying, I drink your podcast, I drink it up.
I drink your podcast, I drink it up. That was more like Dracula.
Just say bird a few times. That might help.
Bored.
Thank you, everybody. Please like, rate,
Thanks,
subscribe,
Ryan.
share us with a friend or two. Follow us on social media at IDYP_podcast on Twitter and Instagram. And you can email us at idrinkyourpodcast@gmail.com. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.